Ta-da! Well, that was a little whoopsie. So I was waiting for 12 o'clock to strike on the gong, and I realized I attached Facebook a little late, and so I had to make it 12:05 because Facebook is stupid. And then I was waiting for the 0 clock to to click down, and it was 12:02, and I was like, "What? What?" Okay, so I was caught unawares. Sorry about that for being 2 minutes late, guys. I was right here waiting for you. So welcome, welcome. Today is my October wrap-up video, and pull up a mug, why don't you? Chandra's here. Hey, good morning, or good afternoon, guys, who are all east of me. John is here. Howdy, howdy, with his typical greeting. I have a mug of my own today. It's black tea, just regular, but it's got Lyle's golden syrup. So if anyone knows and loves it, or wants to keep hating on it, feel free to go ahead. But I actually like golden syrup, so there we go. I was going to start off, let's see, with a little bit of current updates. So I have been absent for the past 2 days. You may have noticed, I don't know, I've tried to be on live streams, but it just didn't happen in the last 2 days because yesterday was the Sanibel Island Writers Conference. And if you're asking, was I at it? No, I was helping produce it. So I'm going to pop up the playlist link in the chat there because it's a little hard to It's a little hard to read, but it's a playlist link, so that's why it's so long. And there were 8 talks, and I did 4 of them just behind the scenes, and I got to listen to a lot of great advice. What I was most amazed by was that the authors and poets and screenplay writers and just like they'd done so many different things. Like they had poems and short stories and screenplays and novels, and just like, I won't say seamlessly because obviously it was a journey, but they swam back and forth through the porous borders of genre and discipline. And I thought that was very impressive. So there were a lot of fun things. The last one was 4 different guys who were big jokesters. So if you're looking to laugh, that was a fun one to end. But yeah, so Sanibel was a big thing. Been planning that for a couple months now, and now it's over. So, woo! The other thing that happened was my family's here. They're visiting. They're visiting right now, actually. So my dad and my aunt are visiting. Last night we went out to a sports bar, and I don't really drink, and there were screens everywhere to play the Ducks game because I don't really watch sports. And we were there with family I hadn't seen for a long time. And I had a great time. It was really loud. It was really hard to talk. It wasn't the greatest place to catch up if you hadn't seen someone for like 10 years, but they brought a dog, and the dog was allowed in the sports bar, and so that was like the big selling point. One came down from Seattle, one came up from Eugene, and so we had a nice night with like 3 out of 4 siblings on my dad's side. It was like half a reunion. It was really cool. So that was fun, but that's also why I couldn't make a lot of the live streams. But this morning I fixed that. My priority was to watch Barrett's live stream with Shannon, and I did, and that was fantastic. So I'm very glad that Shannon has got over that first hump of like having an interview. She did great. There were a lot of cool things that I learned. And she seems to have studied up on the business of publishing and marketing and all that stuff before her first book. And Barrett won influencer status. So yeah, he bumped her up to #1 in an Amazon category. How cool is that? So I think we're all going to be looking for the Barrett treatment from now on. Pretty awesome. So that is the current events I think that I have. So I'll jump into some of the reading stuff for October. How many of all y'all did any reading for Victober? Let me know. Drop a raised hand in the comments if you have that emoji. I was all over this last year and really enjoyed the Victorian reads that I had hoarded up to that point and got an excuse to read in a concentrated manner in October. But this year I dialed it back because I had, multiple readathons I was trying for. And I think I read 3, and 2 of them I was like, meh, no thanks. So not great. But yeah, let me know if you guys read any and if it was successful, because that will bring me a little bit of joy to make up what I was hoping for this month. Let's go through those first then. I read The Hazley Family by Mrs. A.E. Johnson. It gave me big, a cross between Little House on the Prairie and Boxcar Children vibes. Because basically it's a daughter who has one situation growing up, not a great family. She becomes a little angel in the home, like the Victorian ideal. She comes back to her original family and like is a good influence on them all, like a literal angel. And all the things that were sad and broken down eventually mend and get better because she influences them to like take religion. So it wasn't really my thing, but it was interesting. I'm glad I read it. Some of the introduction dealt with the fact that this was written by an African American woman. This is from the Schomburg Library of 19th Century Black Women Writers, which is this format that catches my eye whenever I go into a used bookstore now. And the introduction talked a lot about the fact that the writer specifically made the character without racial attributes so that it would succeed with a white audience. Because in that age, and in this, in fact, when you don't put specific attributes in to key people into thinking certain things, they default to their own culture or white culture because it's been the dominant one for so long. So I thought that was interesting that they noted it, but it wasn't like interesting for 200 pages, you know? So it was an interesting point and a good example. And I'm glad it didn't take me too long to read because it's like old time, like a reprint, which is lots of leading and like a small book. It's like small size. So fair. I think I like 2.5 stars. So there's that first Victober read. We've got Anita saying, yeah, it was a great interview with Shannon, aka SD Huston. And Jim saying, it's midnight here, so I won't be joining you. I'll be turning in. For October, I started Little Dorrit. Yeah, so Jim has tried cracking into a big Charles Dickens, as is his want. And it's going to continue in November, I believe. So all power to him. All right, what's my next disappointing Victober read? All right, so this is another easy, fast one. Jerome K. Jerome, Three Men in a Boat. Fun little cover. I got this in a used bookstore between last Victober and this Victober, and I thought, oh, this is the one everyone's talking about. So, comedy. Comedy is very subjective. It's very personal. And Jerome K. Jerome, let's see. I've never heard of him outside of this book or read anything else by him. So I just read the introduction to this, which explained a little about his life. And he talks about his group of friends and a boat trip that they all got together to go on, like a little vacation from London. And basically he makes it a comedy of errors. There's all these dissembling going on, like a lot of people saying they know how to do things and they don't, and trying to be manly and hide their mistakes, and believing that they're right and the friends are always wrong. And that's sort of funny for a little while, but it just was more of that all the time. And there were like a few, if you know my system, there's the top and there's the bottom. There are a few passages that I will read for a dramatic interlude video later this month, but it was just sort of tiresome after a while. Even though it's short, I have to interpret these as satirical, even though he says it's true, because he just runs with it in that very dry British humor way. And usually I'm good with the dose of that, but not like a course of the medicine. So again, I think I gave this like 2.75 stars, just not my bag. So other people could find it delightful, especially if you dip in and out of it, because maybe that'll taste better. But for me, trying to read more books fast, it didn't really work. That was the second Victober disappointing read. But then Chrissy's here. Hey, Chrissy. Also did not participate in Victober, hoping to do a readathon or two in December. Yeah. You had something else going on in October. You had a Coraline read along, I believe. I believe that was October, if my internal clock is not off. So, what was I rescued by for Victober? My buddy read with Berna's Bookish Adventures. We read Elizabeth Gaskell's Cranford, and this is my copy. It's also a short one. You saw I was strategically going for shorter books for Victober. This is not an accident. And I really enjoyed this. We have a live discussion of it, so I'll pop that up later. But basically, it's a small town. It's some funny old women. It's a sort of subculture that acts a certain way and has certain guidelines. And what is interesting is how they navigate these moral guidelines. And they don't hit you over the head with it, but the outside narrator really does a great job of portraying the tenderness and care that these older ladies in this small town have for each other. And that's what really shines through and what I really appreciated about this read. There was a lot of comedy in here, and it wasn't satirical. It was tongue-in-cheek. It was dry, but it was not like Three Men in a Boat. It was just more cute or tender rather than hit you over the head with it. So I really love this one. It's like a 4 stars, 4.25, something around there. And yeah, so I've read North and South and now Cranford. And I think I have another Elizabeth Gaskell, Mary Barton, the one that Jim has recommended. I think I have that one on my shelf too. So maybe I'll save it for next Victober, or maybe I'll read it in between. Who knows? But that was a definite win for Victober, 1 out of 3. So, that's pretty good. Pretty good. Anita saying, no Victober reads for me, but I hope to read a nonfiction book about the Victorian era this month. Oh, cool. Okay, well, that sort of ties it together. So nonfiction November, you've got a book about Victorian era. I like it. And Chrissy, the Coraline read-along was in October. Yeah. And the return cart is Chrissy's name on YouTube, but Lost in a Book is her handle on other platforms. And she's also on TikTok. So if anyone's on TikTok and really likes the book talk, she's doing stellar at it. She's posting a lot, and I can't even keep up. So well done on that. All right, so other reads in October. I'm going to go through the rest of my physical books here. We got this one that was left over from September. You will no doubt recognize Labor and Capital in the Gilded Age, which is congressional testimonies in 1883. So exciting! But it really was. It really was. And I'm going to include some of these in the dramatic interlude later this month as well. So stay tuned for that. Edited by John Garraty. I think this was put out in the 70s. It's very hard to find in there's no ISBN. So I had to create an entry in Storygraph and put in my own photo, which was kind of fun. But this was a good research book. I give it 4.5 stars. It's basically just interviews with people in front of Congress. Congress asks questions, and they have excerpts from their testimonies that people who are in the employer class, who came from both sides, the privileged and the work their way up, as well as people in the employed classes, and who are talking about scabs and strikes and tension and resentment and how they want to handle working with each other. It was really interesting. Obviously relates to today and book that I'm writing now. Oh, so yeah, definitely recommend if you ever find a random copy of this in your bookstore. I have no idea where I got this. It has a name in it, and it has usually I can tell, but I don't think this is a place I normally go to because it's not familiar. So yeah, that was a good one. Good research read. Then we've got what's the next one that I started? I think it's this one. So this is brilliant. All We Can Save: Truth, Courage, and Solutions for the Climate Crisis. The editors are Ayana Elizabeth Johnson and Katherine K. Wilkinson. And I follow Ayana Elizabeth Johnson on Twitter, and she's a superstar. I guess I haven't looked into Katherine K. Wilkinson as much, but I will be reading from this in the dramatic reading or a dramatic interlude video later this month, because there are just really cool. Actually, maybe I'll read one right now. The thing I like about this is that usually when we're reading climate nonfiction, we're reading about how we haven't made the targets, we haven't achieved any of the targets that we did set. It's very doom and gloom. It's very much about um, what we're doing wrong. And there is a lot of that. It's true, you have to admit. But this basically is like, and if John's still watching, I'm going to use 1,000 points of light again, even though it is George W. Bush's phrase. But basically, like the small is beautiful. Like a lot of people are working to change the momentum behind climate change and like reverse the engines and steer the ship around. And this is a collection of essays from different people who are working in all different sectors and disciplines and trying different strategies to influence people's behavior. And it's encouraging. And there's also different mediums, like there's poetry and there's, what would you call it? Not cartoons really, but like art, like bits of art that you would see on Tumblr or Instagram, as well as personal essays. So yeah. Yeah. Oh, should I read this now? No, I'll wait till later. I'll wait till later. Okay. I just really like the poems in this. Yeah, so definitely recommend. I think this is my 5-star read from the month. All we can say. So that was really good. Let's see. Rest of the physical books. We've got the Tramp printers. Okay, so this is a new discovery, Forgotten Trails of the Traveling Typographers by Charles Overbeck. This I found when I was looking up letterpress resources in my local library. And it turns out that this is a local writer. And so I, read the end of the book. There's a bit of biography stuff, and it said that he's in Portland. And I was like, oh, let me look him up. So I looked him up on Facebook and like sent him an email that was like, oh, can I see how you do letterpress stuff if you're still doing this? And this is about the history of printers who used to go from job to job and kind of like drifters on the rails, like, I can't remember. Tramps, this is the name I guess you would use in the 20s and 30s. And especially in the 19th century, there was this was a part of the industries, like a big part of it. People didn't stay, they would go from place to place. And that was part of the draw of the industry. So there's a lot of interesting tidbits about people who did that, their lives, their politics, what skills they had to have. And this is useful for my novel. So this is one of the things that's going to be in my research file for late 19th century printers, like my protagonist. So that's really fun. And it was really fun to meet him. And I actually got to make my own little bookmark on the letterpress printer. Yeah. So that was really cool. So I definitely recommend this if you find it. He just did a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter for a second printing of this, expanded a little bit. So I'm very excited for that, and I chipped in for that as well. So excited for the second edition. And then the final book that I have here in physical form is The Engineer's Wife by Tracey Enerson Wood. This is a fictionalized story about a real woman who was the wife of the engineer for the Brooklyn Bridge, as you can see on the cover. And it's a good historical fiction book. It was really meaty. There was lots of personal interactions, a little bit of this could have happened, a lot of the engineering, but like made it interesting for me, which is quite an achievement. So I think it starts in the 1860s when she first meets him, to their marriage, to the difficulties that they go through, to his health concerns, to the reason why he couldn't really do much of the stuff on the bridge. She ends up going down into, there's a word for the like upside down air suction thing that they use as the base of a underwater foundation. It's not Khartoum. Anyway, she actually went down in that with like it's crazy. It's really cool to learn about this no longer used technology. So I thought Tracey Enerson Wood did a really good job of portraying this and portraying like the woman's struggles as someone who was trying to learn all of this without the original education chances, and then be taken seriously by people when she was the wife of the engineer, even though she could do all the work. And then, the choices and sacrifices she had to make in between. So really, really good. I was on a panel on Christy Stratus's channel. She was also on, and I was very excited because I already had her book, And that's why I read it in the month, because I wanted to prepare and be able to talk about her novel while I was on the same panel with her. Just so cool. So yeah, so The Engineer's Wife, definite recommend. I think 4.5 stars for especially people who like historical fiction. Chrissy's saying, thank you. I admit TikTok is just so easy to do quick videos. If I could find a way to streamline my YouTube process, I totally would. I know. Well, this is my solution. John is still watching, and I used it correctly. Okay, cool. And let me know if you remember the name for the foundation thing, because we saw it in the museum in Chicago, and I can't remember. Digger, danger. Like I'm trying to flip through and see if I can see it, because they use the word a lot, but it's been like over a month since I came across the word. So caissons. There we go. Caisson. A caisson. It's from French, caisson. I'm not sure why, but yeah, that is the thing where people would get sick if they were too deep below the water level and were in pumped in air for too long. And so that's why the original engineer of the Brooklyn Bridge had trouble. But yeah, really good. Engineer's Wife is on my TBR. Very cool. And Christy says, I do like your solution. I've been tempted to adopt it for me. I know. And as I've said to several other people on YouTube, if we're friends, feel free to hit me up for like a little live stream practice session or tutorial. I can set people at ease too. I can be Barrett. I enjoy it. So feel free to ask me about that. I forgot to take that banner down. Whoopsie. Okay, so that was all my physical books on my list for October, and now the ones that I have images of. So I did this in advance. I'm pretty proud of myself, and I'll go through these ones. So we've got a mystery. This. There we go. Okay. I went to a historical fiction conference in June, and M. Louisa Locke was on several of the panels, and I was very impressed with her. I'd read one of her books in this series, the first one, probably a couple years ago, and I saw that she had a sale for the second one, which was Halloween related, called Uneasy Spirits, and it was about spiritualism. I had done a little research in spiritualism for my first novel, and so I thought, oh, this will be a fun one, easy. It was so good that I actually, sorry, I'm getting texts from my family. It was so good that I actually, I lost my train of thought. Oh, I know what it was. It's related to the phone, funnily enough. So good that I actually read it on my phone, because it was a Kobo book. So I don't like to buy Kindle products, but I got it for the Kobo, and I have an app on my phone for the Kobo, which is Rakuten owned. So anyway, I read it on my phone because it was that like gripping. So yeah, good mystery. It's the Victorian San Francisco mystery series, and it's a woman who owns a boarding house who has adventures, and this is the second in the series, and definitely recommend. 4 stars. It was fun. It's slower moving than like your pot boilers. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it was very well paced, I thought, and there were lots of threads. Probably, I think the one thing that I was skimming a little bit through was narration, and it was keeping itself like proper when I was probably like racing to get to the next detail or the next plot thing. She had made it so exciting that I was like, I don't want to hear the explanation in the moment. I'll figure it out as we go. So I was wanting to race through it a little bit, but that was really good. I really enjoyed the story. So that's the mystery for this month. That was also supernatural. We've got Crooked Hallelujah by Kelli Jo Ford. This is a book by someone who is Native American. It is about a woman who grows up in a family, and it takes 3 generations actually of stories. She is raised in Oklahoma and Texas and goes back and forth, and sort of it mirrors her back and forth between her native experience and her trying to be on her own experience. There's a lot of traumatic stuff in here, but a lot of emotional resonance. Those are two areas I don't know very much about. So it was a good story. This was a library book that I checked out that took over a year for me to get on hold. And I think it's because there were no fees during pandemic times. And so people just kept it. But also it was a very highly sought after book. Excuse me a minute. So yeah, so I think I gave that 4 stars as well. It's a good book for Native American Heritage Month, which is this month. Then we've got romance on the side. So this is one that I actually, when I got into the Kobo for M. Louisa Locke's book, I saw that I had this from like 5 years ago that I hadn't read. And so it was like a romance that I was like, sure, why not? This is, again, I can read it on my phone because it's so engaging, and it was a really quick read. It was notable because it was, like a first love, but then they're separated because of family stuff. And then they get back together. And the cool thing is that they're working on a science project that was about carbon sequestration and like some of that fun modern stuff. So it was a very modern book, even though it was several years old on my Kobo. So I like that. And it was a good love story, happy ending. You need one of those every once in a while. So yeah. Next on electronic, we have From the Corner of the Oval. And this I actually listened to on Libro FM. Oh, let's do this. Let's do this. Doo-doo! We love Libro.fm. So I listened to this at the very beginning of October, and it is the account of a former Obama staffer, Beck Dorey Stein, who famously, like the hook for the book is that she responded to an ad on Craigslist for a stenography job because she was like at her wit's end trying to find a job. And it turns out that it was actually to be the stenographer for the White House, and they couldn't think of a different way to find someone. So she's in the Obama White House for like 5 years, 6 years, and has all sorts of interesting things. This is both bits and pieces of the Obama administration behind the scenes, as well as a lot of her personal life, just like how she grew from when she started, how she sort of like grew as an adult into this situation from like mid-20s to I guess 30, 31 is when she was done. So very funny. There's a lot of relationship and emotional roller coaster stuff. And I think for me personally, I was a little annoyed with the same mistakes being made, but it's someone's life. So, I mean, what are you going to do? Like, if you had to make that mistake that many times to grow through it, then that's just what happened. So, but yeah, she writes really well, and she has some interesting, like, cool behind the scenes stuff. So I really like this, and I gave it 3.5 stars. So yeah, it's good stuff. Next, I had my Patreon book club book, and this was also on Libro.fm. But if you're interested in the Patreon book club, I think I have a thing. Yes, I have a thing for that. So that's I guess I need to put it in the chat, don't I? Anyway, Patreon book club is something that I run once every 2 months so that you have enough time to procure the book and read it. And we read Square Hunting by Francesca Wade. This is an interesting case of a collective biography, which I didn't know was a subgenre, but it's nonfiction. It's basically a little biographical details about the 5 women who are in and around Mecklenburg Square between 1910 and 1930. And so it's basically picking and choosing people that have hit each other tangentially in their writing journeys. There's an economic historian, a classicist, a literary fiction writer, a poet/writer, and is that everybody? I think so. And a mystery writer, Dorothy Sayers. And I really enjoyed hearing more about Dorothy Sayers' life and discovering Eileen Power, who is now on my Twitter handle as I'm the Eileen Power fan club president. So if that didn't make any sense to you when you saw me on Twitter, this is why, because this book was so interesting. I mean, Virginia Woolf we hear a lot about, but I don't particularly have a lot of draw for her or her writing. And people who have recently DNF'd her books may agree with me. But the other folks I didn't know much about. So I was pretty excited to learn, and now I want to pursue some of them a little more. So that was great. So I think this is like 4.5 stars. The one thing I will say is that I love Libro FM, but I don't think this audiobook was the best way to process the material. I think I want to buy the physical book at some point and go back over it, because listening was hard because there was already so much scattered about the collective biography that I think I need to see it and like organize it better with a visual reinforcement. So yeah. Okay. Yay, Allison's here. Hello, hello. Yay for the Eileen Power fan club. Woohoo! She also had a younger sister who also did some really cool stuff with education on the BBC, like the radio broadcast. So stuff for everybody. So this is really, I thought this was really a great read. Oh, and I'll just note that our next Patreon book club pick is going to be The Library Book by Susan Orlean, which is a classic of nonfiction / true crime / just catnip for book lovers. So there you go. So check that out if you are interested. There's plenty of time. You've got that in most used bookstores at this point, so it shouldn't be very expensive. So that's another good thing I like to aim for. All right, next we've got Why Women Have Better Sex Under Socialism. And this is by Kristen Godsey. This is one that I listened to on Libro.fm, but I also got a big boost of wanting to listen to it from, who had this discussion? I should have looked this up before. Rosie Cockshut, definitely. Amrita by the Book, definitely. And I think there's one more person. I can't remember who it was. This was like a few months ago. They did a buddy read of this book, and it's a short book. It's kind of like, it's an essay or a dissertation that was expanded into a short nonfiction. And she does a great job of having some personal anecdotes and talking about her experiences with people, and then also bringing in a lot of research because she's written extensively on the subject. So this subject not being better sex, but being gender parity and equality, and the difference between socialist regimes and capitalist regimes in terms of these opportunities for women, and the relations between the sexes, and just really interesting arguments. They had a whole discussion at the end of sexual economics, that theory, and how she was rebutting it. And like, there's like 2 ways you could go. They're really interesting to think about. So I thought this was very thought-provoking. Sorry. We're running out of steam here. Thought-provoking and just like well-researched. So I'd be willing and eager to discuss this with people if they were into it. And I think that is it. Let's see. Labor and Capital, Corner of the Oval, Cranford, All We Can Save, Crooked, Square, Engineers, Tramp, Hazily, Uneasy, Women, One and Only, 3 Men, yes. And then we've got the ones that I'm still reading, just for, oh, I spilled the tea. Sorry, book. Still reading. So this is one with Chrissy, and I'm past halfway. So woo! And also Island Queen, which I flashed up earlier. So that is the other one that I'm reading. And just to segue into this next thing, I'm going to have Vanessa Riley and Susanna Kearsley, 2 idol historical fiction authors, come on my channel next Sunday. So I'm super excited and a tad bit nervous. So if anyone wants to come and be nice and support me in the comments, I would love it. It's next Sunday, November 14th. So I'd be enraptured to see people and to have you guys, sling those softball questions at me. That would be great. And I just see RK Stumbling Bear. Ooh, I really liked the library book. Yay! Okay. I think a lot of people have read it and enjoyed it, and I'm like way behind. So I know there's another book club on BookTube called the Last to Read Book Club, and this is our attempt at being the last to read it, because I hear great things about the library book. So definitely look up Margaret Pinard on Patreon if you're interested in participating in our discussion on Sunday, December 19th. You're welcome to join in. And finally, what else did I forget? And then I've got a jet. Red Mars, Hazley. I think that is everything. Victober, family time, Patreon. Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like the books that I was talking about. And I don't know, I provided some Sunday entertainment. I watched Shannon's interview, and you should too. Coming events are, I'll pop this in the chat too. Next Sunday's next Sunday's event with Vanessa and Susanna, and then the preview, although I don't have the event up yet. The next Sunday, I will be having a little Patreon bookish chat with my friend author Emily Harris, who I think several of you probably subscribe to. She is traveling all around. So I think she's been in Virginia for a long time, but now she's going to be on the West Coast in my time zone. And we're going to have a little chat about historical fiction writing and some other interesting things on the next Sunday. So yes, that is my AuthorTube video for the month. And that way I keep hitting my goals. So I think that's about it for today. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to go dash and pick up my aunt from church and my dad from the Apple store, which is his church, because that's where they decided to go today, and I'm the chauffeur. And yeah, so that's my Sunday. Hope you guys are enjoying your weekend. Hope to see you soon for my historical fiction panel next Sunday. And have a lovely weekend. Thanks, everybody. Bye.